stock, and we'll have a lot of tooling, but one thing that we're missing is an ability to kind of to capture images of endpoints, or even images of certain directories of files, especially if we're working on an insider threat investigation, or we're going to be working on any major incidents. So we did have an incident last year where that that kind of uh, like we didn't have the capability to properly like capture images. 'Cause, like we have EDR, right, and we have SIEM and everything else, but we just couldn't grab the evidence that we needed for auditing and for legal purposes. So that's basically it. So we need the tool that where we need to you know to to gather an image whenever we need to, basically.
All right. Yeah, thank you for that. So it sounds like kind of a a standard standard demonstration here. So you said you wanted to go ahead and get going.
Yeah, we can start.
Okay. All right. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. So Belkasoft Remote Acquisition gives you the ability to acquire both removable and hard disk drives, selected artifacts from both Mac and Windows machines, connected mobile devices for like such as Apples and Androids, and that will only work when they're connected to Windows machines, and then the ability to acquire memory, kind of like in a moment's notice. As I mentioned, our supported operating systems are Windows and Mac. So getting into the actual deployment of the agents to both of these operating systems. So we'll start with Windows. We have three different types of deployment options, which is a group policy object, and that's typically going to be for like your mass deployment option for agents on Windows devices. Obviously crafting a group policy that you can push out to, hundreds or thousands of machines at one time. So obviously that's a quick and best way of, again, that mass deployment. Next is our Windows management instrumentation. That's just going to require an administrator username and password in order to log into that machine and drop the agent on that box. And then finally, there for Windows, we have what's called a local deployment option, and that is going to be, putting it on a USB, shipping it to the location that you're trying to acquire from, an SD card, a network share, PuTTY, really any way that you can transfer it by means of not the other two options that I just talked about. And then when it comes to Mac, the only deployment option that's available there is the local. So GPO Windows not going to work for. I'm sorry, GPO and WMI not going to work for Mac. And so the option you have is that USB, SD card, network share, however you can transfer it, maybe even SSH, but in that manner. All right. So when it comes to Windows acquisition options, starting with the disk drives, you have the ability to do a physical or logical acquisition. So either, obviously a bit for bit or just a logical of the full system image for Windows devices. Again, that will work with the internal hard drive of the machine, as well as any sort of connected like USB drives, hard drives, and so on. The artifacts for that, it's a logical acquisition, and I'm not going to name all those different types of artifacts that are down there, but basically you would select like one of the top level categories that you can see on the screen, and from there it'll give you a slew of different options to where you can select exactly what you want to pull off of that box. And then when it comes to the mobile devices, we have three different options that are available, and I'll get into those in a little bit later slide. And then, of course, we do have the memory acquisition option. All right, now as far as the Mac OS acquisition options that we have, so unfortunately, we cannot acquire the internal hard drive of a Mac remotely. We can only do all files and folders. So it's basically a logical is the best you're going to get for the internals of a Mac. So by specifying the root folder, you can get all files and folders within that Mac. Now, if there is a connected physical drive like a USB or a hard drive or something connected to that Mac, you can acquire a bit for bit copy of that connected drive. All right, so as far as the connected mobile device acquisition methods go, again, these only work when they are connected to a Windows machine that has one of these agents on it. So you'll have three different options for both Android and iOS. You'll have your standard backup for both ADB and iTunes. You'll have your Android file system copy that will require that the phone on the other end is rooted, as well as jailbroken for the like on iOS for that full file system. And then you have kind of your logicals for pictures, videos, and audio files on both platforms, your MTP, PTP, your media transfer, picture transfer protocol, and your AFC, your Apple File Conduit. Again, these have to be connected to Windows machines. They also have to be in the same setup as they would be if you were acquiring them locally. So, unlocked, developer options enabled, and so on. All right, and that is the short and sweet slide deck for Belkasoft remote acquisition. It was kind of meant to be super simple, not to be too crazy and complicated to set up. And so that's pretty much it. Did you have questions on the slide? I will get into the product, but just want to see if you had any questions on the slide deck before I get started.
Yeah, like for the acquisition of images for Windows, which is there a format I can choose? Is it easier one or is it raw? Like, what's the image format?
Yep. So you'll have two different options depending on one, where you store it, and two, what you select, physical, logical. The two different options are going to be your DD raw or E01 formats. And you will have the optional hash calculations and verifications as well.
Okay, great.
All right. Any other questions on the slide deck?
No, I think that's for WMI. Is that going to be going through the tool itself and you input the like credentials for the
It is.
admin? Okay, great.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to, you'll select WMI. You'll put the IP address of the machine you're trying to get into, as well as a port that you want to use to get through the firewall. And then from there, it's going to ask you for the username and password, and it will push to that machine, and you should see it connected on your remote acquisition server shortly after. All right. And then the contact slide here, obviously James' email is jc@belkasoft.com. I am jl@belkasoft.com. And this number right here is a direct line to me for support if you need it. All right. So what you see on the screen now is the user interface of remote acquisition. So just a quick glance, what we're currently in is called Grid View. It organizes all of your machines that you have agents on, kind of in this nice little detailed view. We also have a card view. Switch it up a little bit if you prefer that. I kind of like this, just gives me more info. The little funnels allow you to filter. So say you had thousands of agents pushed out, and you want to filter by something like a specific IP address. You can assign colors to departments or something like that, and filter by colors to easily capture multiple devices. Another thing here is you see these check boxes next to these. If you say I select three of my options here, I could acquire all three of these at the same time. I don't have to do each one individually. Another thing you probably notice here is our orange and green color scheme. So orange means that I've sent an agent to that box. It's sitting on that box, but that box is not currently connected to my remote acquisition server. And green is, it's connected to the server. So if you'll notice, if I select any of these orange ones, acquire is not an option. Or if I select the green one, acquire becomes an option. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start with kind of what you would do upon first setup of Belkasoft Remote Acquisition. Again, at any point in time, if you have questions, please feel free to just yell at me, and I'll stop and answer the best I can. It's if you hold it, I just don't want to make sure. I want to make sure we answer all your questions. So.
Quick
Now,
question: Is
absolutely.
there that's this just the server, right? There's no like a server client. It's just one one application, right?
This is it. Yeah, one application.
Yeah. Okay.
So the first thing you'll do is set up your server. And whenever you first start Belkasoft Remote Acquisition, this will pop up automatically. But it's going to ask you to enter in your IP address. Now, if you're doing a local connection, say you're going to some corporation and you're connected to their network and you're going to push thousands of agents via GPO, you could do this local IP address. You wouldn't need an external IP address because you're going to be within the same network range. But anyways, if you were doing a actual remote collection, right, you're sitting at your lab or your office and you're connecting or collecting a device, across the world. You would put your external IP address, so your public-facing IP, and then whatever port you want to use for port forwarding in this location. And then if you're using Windows, you can secure that with the SSL certificate. This I need more info will allow you to open up this 48-page help guide on getting set up and started. So once you have your server settings configured, from there, you will go to deploy an agent. So we'll just click deploy in the bottom right-hand corner. And then it's going to ask us what platform we would like to deploy an agent to. So I'll start with Windows. And then it's going to ask us where we want to deploy the agent. So as I was talking about a local acquisition here, which is obviously what I'm doing inside of my demonstration for demonstration purposes, it's connected to another workstation in my office. So my endpoints are in the same address range. If I select next, it's going to give me the 3 different options that I talked about. So where I can do a GPO, I can do a WMI. Just to show you what that would look like, I'd enter in that IP address, and I don't know if that'll actually, it's not gonna, let's do configure automatically. And then from there, you can see where it says, endpoint user password, and then you'll be good to go. Now, going back to GPO, that's actually going to craft a group policy object to be pushed out. And then local, again, is that USB. And depending on where you're deploying agents to will depend on what deployment options you have. So say your endpoints are just outside of your router, you would choose this option. And then you're going to lose your GPO, right? So you're not on the same network anymore. You can't craft the GPO. It wouldn't go anywhere. So you have the WMI and local. Now, say, you both endpoint and remote acquisitions are behind routers. You're on your own networks. You would choose this option, and you still have those 2 options available. When it comes to Mac, we mentioned the only deployment option, no matter where you are in this situation, is going to be local, because there's no GPOs, no WMI. And so this is the only option that you will have. So local will look like this. You'll put the router, the external IP of that router and the port that you want to use for port forwarding, and then it will be pushed to that endpoint in that manner. So that's how it's going to know how to find you back, right? That's whenever you ship it via USB or SD card or network share. That's how it's going to find its way back to connect. All right. Any questions on the deployment options?
For the WMI, there was a user. Is that the local user? like is that a user that you're selecting? Like I wasn't sure what that was, what the user was, the local user,
Yeah.
or
So
the user, the like the admin user.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I
so
mean, you
that,
would just either type in the endpoint name or the IP address of the one that you're trying to connect to, and then it would
yeah,
be the endpoint users. It's going to need to be an administrative username and password. So if the endpoint user has
local or Active Directory.
local admin, will be just fine.
Okay, well, what if we only have um, admin directory? Like we're mostly an Active Directory organization, so like we don't really have like local admin
Oh, so
accounts.
yeah, if you're in an Active Directory organization, then I mean, you just have to add somebody who's in the administrator container. It doesn't have to be
Okay,
on that box specifically. An Active Directory wide administrator will work on a Active Directory connected machine.
okay, great.
And this actually does work through like VPNs and VLANs and everything else as well. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'll show you the task log. So the task log is kind of the hey, this is what's been done the entire time you've had Belkasoft remote acquisition. We can look and see, I acquired a Samsung mobile image. And if I were to double click this, it would tell me everything that happened, which just started and it finished. Nothing happened. Doing a memory dump, it'll let you know what it was, when it was, the license code that did it, the version of Belkasoft remote acquisition. So this is kind of just your log to say, hey, I acquired this device on this date and time, and this is going to, this one might take a minute because this is an actual. Uh, which one was this? So we'll let that load, but yeah, this is the actual log, what it was doing while it was capturing that machine. And so that's typically what that would look like. And as far as the endpoints and everything go, you can edit them. So if I were to select one and select edit, if I wanted to assign it a description, assign it a specific color, give it a group number, all of that kind of stuff, I can do that from here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is select the green one, the one that is connected to my remote acquisition server, and I'm going to select acquire. From here, it's going to give me those four options, the ones that we talked about. If I do disk drive, it's going to query the drives on my remote machine. Hovering over it will give me about as much information as I can see on the screen itself right now. If it can identify the serial number or the size or type, it will be listed here for you. So you can do either a physical acquisition or logical. So if I were to select physical, it gives me two options, and these two options are going to be the same no matter what I select throughout the rest of this. I can either store whatever it is I'm collecting on that endpoint. It'll be compressed, so it'll save space, and from there I can choose when I want to upload it to the server. I can also do a transfer an image directly to the server automatically, and so those are kind of like your two options there. So if I say store an image on the endpoint, it's only going to it'll give me E01 or a DD because it's going to be compressed. You don't have to worry about a big file being transferred back and so on. So here's your say I want to do a SHA-1 and an MD5. I can verify the hash. I can create a multi-part image, and I can pick what size I want that multi-part image to be. Now, if I were to do transfer an image directly back to the server, notice that my option is only raw, right? Because it's going to be compressed. It's going to be a smaller file. And so that's my only option for that. I still can do the checksum, I can verify, and I can still create my multi-part. So anyways, let me go ahead and go next after here. And then it's going to say, when do you want the acquisition to start? You can either start it, as soon as you say go, or you want to wait until, Billy leaves work at, 1400 on a specific date to capture. You can schedule these acquisitions. Then we would select next. It's then going to show you where it's going to store it and what its image name will be. And it is based on variables, but you can change this to whatever you want it to be. So this is kind of your last, hey, this is everything you've selected. Make sure it's correct before you select start.
So I can't do a acquisition an easier one and directly it's like save it on my server. It has to be saved on the target machine.
Right. So it's going to be if you want to transfer it directly back. So it's still going to do that, right? So let's go back and do disk drive, select a physical, store an image, E01, select next, and then it says when should it start. We'll select next, and then from there you can transfer it back. So if you want to do it, as soon as as it's acquiring, it'll send back to the server in DD or RAW format, just because of the compressed size. It won't allow for an E01 to come back like that. So when you transfer it, you'll need to convert or just load the DD image into whatever tool you're using. What are you using to process these image files?
So I'm probably going to be using just an initially probably FTK imager of them, and then also maybe like autopsy until we if we decide that we need something else like X-ray, then they'll purchase that. But for now, it's going to be just the open source tools and the freeware, the
Okay.
free FTK light imager. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So completely understand that. And I'm assuming you are familiar with Belkasoft Evidence Center X, right? That's kind of our flagship product for the loading analysis and processing of.
Yeah. We'll have the necessity right now for that type of product.
Yep.
Whatever we're going to be doing can be done with the tools that are available right now. But
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
so I don't see, but so what happens if, let's say, I'm going to capturing like a 400 gigabyte hard drive and there's only like maybe, I don't know, 100 gigs left on it. Like, would that be able to actually do the full capture?
Will you be able to do the full capture? I'm sorry, this will capture.
Yeah,
I didn't.
with easier one, right? Because you're saying that that's storing it on like locally first, right?
You can do E01 or RAW depending on where you're going to store that image. So say
Correct.
it's a 500 gig, image or whatever. I mean, there has to be, some space on the endpoint in order to store it there. You can also store it on a like network share or a connected
Okay,
NAS or something to that location.
okay.
All right. So going into artifacts. So this is actually, you select what drive you want to pull artifacts from. We'll just say the C drive. It will then give you those two options again. This one will transfer directly back. We'll say we'll do SHA-1 and verify upon completion. Now, this is what this is going to be is a TAR, so a compressed format of artifacts. So we'll select next. And as I mentioned, you'll select an overarching category. It'll give you different options to select. So peer-to-peer payment systems like Bitcoin, different types of documents. You can go by all documents. You can filter by Windows or Mac base, and so on. So you see here's like a Windows platform. And that actually is going to be the only thing that's going to be available because we're on a Windows deployment. But you select what artifacts you want to pull, whether that was Skype, TeamViewer, Slack, Telegram, so on. Also browser details, chat, system files like common ones for instant investigations and like that. So you can also do a do not extract, only perform the search, and so that's just kind of a little quicker option for you. Now, let's say I do documents, select all documents, select next. It's going to say when do you want to start. Again, we can do it now or we can schedule it. Select next, and then it's going to give us that, hey, this is everything you've selected. Make sure it's right. Where do you want to store it, right? So this is where that's going to be stored. So Now, you see the image format here. That's one thing to note is that none of the Belkasoft images that are created are going to be proprietary. You're going to get .mims, you're going to get .abs, tars, E01s, or DDs from Belkasoft Remote Acquisition. All right, getting into mobile. Again, I mentioned these have to be connected to a Windows machine. Selecting this, you have the three options that I talked about during the PowerPoint. And the phones still have to be set up just as they would be if you were acquiring them locally. And then finally, memory. This one's straight and to the point as it should be. What this is doing is taking advantage of Belkasoft's live RAM capturing tool, but built into this remote capability product. So I'll say, okay, let's hash it, verify it. When should it start? When should you upload it? And then you have the option to delete that image upon completion. So once it's transferred back, it can remove itself from that machine. Select next, and then it's going to give us those options, and notice the .mim as that output. Any questions on what we've covered? Anything I can kind of dig into a little bit more for you?
No, I think you've pretty much covered everything I had the questions about.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, this is supposed to be super straight to the point, not really polluted with a bunch of different features. So it's just kind of, hey, go out, grab the image, and then you said you had tools to process it. So I mean that's what this thing's meant for. Just super simple acquisitions.
And another quick question is, can I drop the agent onto, let's say, a VM in the cloud, like an EC2 instance, and then grab the like an image that way as well?
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely. So in that case,
yeah?
if we were going to do a deployment, say it's a Windows 10 in the box, we could do something like this, where my endpoints are just on the outside of my router. So from here, we'd select next, it's WMI, and then we would put that IP address, that external IP address of that machine. So we're still going outside of our network. We're using WMI to log in. And then just so you're tracking as well on in Belkasoft Event Center X, we actually have the ability to acquire Amazon S3 buckets. So if you store data sources in S3 buckets, you can pull them down directly from S3 through the user interface of Belkasoft, if that's of interest as well.
Is that for this or for something
Oh,
else?
sorry, cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, I was asking for the S3 buckets. Is that through this tool or is that another tool?
Yeah, no, the Amazon S3 bucket capture is actually through Belkasoft Event Center X, but you can still acquire an instance in the cloud with this. You just have to know the networking of that instance.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. All right, and Randy, I saw you joined us about halfway through. I'm sure that Oleg can get you up to speed, but did you have any questions for me?
I don't, and yeah, sorry I was late.
Oh,
But
that's okay.
what I saw was pretty interesting, that's for sure.
Well, also, Randy,
Right.
I have recorded this so that you guys can share it with your team. I'll send Oleg the link. That way you could catch up with what you missed. And Oleg, Randy, is there anything else that you have of us at all? Any questions about this or other products?
No,
Not from
I
me.
think that's
Okay.
it.
Did
No,
you
I think that's
guys
it.
at this
It's
point?
just
I don't remember. Do you guys have the an evaluation copy of it to try out?
we don't know.
I can definitely get you set up with a license. Just send me the contact information of with whom you want me to assign it to, and then we'll get that set up for you guys.
Yeah, so you can sign it to me basically,
Got
and
it.
I'll be
Okay,
testing it.
perfect. And then I'll send you the link as well at the same time.
Awesome, that'll work.
Great. I want to thank you, Oleg and Randy, for joining us today and allowing us to present. Sorry we had to, apologies that we had to postpone it for an hour. Jared got stuck on the road, but was glad he was able to at least do it today for you guys. Jared, again, thank you
Perfect.
for doing the presentation. As always, fantastic. And yeah, guys, if you was Randy here for the contact information slide, Jared? I don't remember.
No, I got in just as you were presenting.
Okay.
Product
So
there.
Jared just pulled up our contact screen. So do a quick screen cap of that or jot it down. You'll see the sales email. It says JC at Belkasoft. Randy, that's me. And that's who you'll be contacting with regards to sales and licensing pricing. Below that, you'll see support at belkasoft.com and JL. JL is Jared's email address, goes directly to him. The sales line, that's an indirect one to me, but it does come to me. And then the support line, Jared, you said that was actually your phone number, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. So again, if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns regarding tech support issues or technical questions like that, give Jared an email or a ring. And any licensing and sales type stuff, give me a shout. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Really do appreciate it. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And Oleg, I'll get that email out to you with the evaluation license as well as the link to this particular demonstration.
Perfect.
All right, thanks. You guys
Thank
as
you
well.
guys.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.